The cameras never show the doors. Not the real doors, anyway. The ones they put on the brochures are decorative. Arched steel, fake scorch marks, tasteful Latin etched along the frame. Good for investors. Good for board members who want to feel dangerous for 9 minutes during a guided tour. Then go home and brag that they saw the gates of hell. The real gates sit 3 levels below that photo op, behind 5 layers of access control and 1 clause in my contract that basically says, if anything gets past you, your soul is collateral. Legal didn't use that word, of course. They wrote it as permanent metaphysical lien, which is the kind of phrase you only see after you've already signed. My name is Calder. I work nights for a company called Erebus Solutions, Incorporated. We provide containment and perimeter security for high-risk metaphysical assets, which is the nicest way anyone has ever described hell bolted to a basement. On paper, I'm a level 3 containment technician. In practice, I'm a glorified bouncer for the worst neighborhood in existence. Tonight was supposed to be uneventful. I was at my usual station. Containment Control, Sector B3, seated in front of a horseshoe of monitors that painted the world in grayscale. Infrared, thermal, magnetic flux, soul density overlays. The room hummed with servers and the distant pulse of the cooling system. Fluorescent strips buzzed overhead with that faint, high-pitched whine you stop hearing after the first month, unless you're on edge. I was on edge a lot. Oro 303 glowed in pale blue on the digital clock to my left. Shift midpoint. The hour when normal people are dreaming, drunks are either asleep or in holding cells, and the world feels thin. Down here, 03-03, is when the pressure from below presses hardest against the reinforced concrete. Or maybe that's just in my head. I finished logging a routine pressure variance on valve cluster 12, 3 kilopascals over spec, well within tolerance, flagged in the system as ambient infernal expansion, no action required. I initialed the entry anyway, a stupid little act of control, as if my initials meant anything to the thing trying to push its way up through the floor. The gate room camera sat dead center in my array. Most nights, it showed the same thing, a circular platform of black stone, encircled by steel gantries and safety rails, lit from above by a ring of industrial lamps. In the middle of the stone, the gate itself, a ragged vertical seam, like the world had been sliced open and someone had stapled it shut. Bolted around it were layers of containment tech, electromagnetic collars, sigil arrays, counter-resonant coils that hummed just below hearing range. Tonight, it showed nothing unusual, just the seam, like always, sleeping. We used to have a saying down here, if you can see hell, you're already in it. The gate never shows you what's on the other side. Not directly. It shows pressure, light distortion, sometimes a kind of distant heat shimmer. Enough to remind you it's not just a fancy door, not enough to prove anything on camera to a committee that doesn't want to believe. Control, this is perimeter 2. Status green. You awake up there, Calder? The voice crackled through my headset, familiar and slightly amused. Jansen, former Army, loud laugh, liked terrible coffee. I thumbed the talk button without looking away from the monitors. Always awake, I said. If I fall asleep, they dock my eternity. Yeah, HR mentioned something about performance reviews in the afterlife, he replied. You seeing anything weird on your end? I scanned the panels. Sector A1 through D4, all green. Movement indicators in the maintenance tunnels, just the patrol drones making their rounds, little white dots on black grids. Thermal showed 3 human signatures, Jansen at perimeter 2, Morales at perimeter 1, and me. Everyone else was upstairs, or pretending they were in charge. Looks clean, I said. Why, bored? Bored gets people killed, he said. Just checking you're not reading a book again. One time, I said. I brought one book one time. It was about demons, Calder. Research, he laughed, the sound clipping at the edge of the comm's compression. Copy that. Perimeter 2 out. The channel clicked quiet. I leaned back, chair creaking, and rolled the tension out of my shoulders. The air in control always smelled faintly metallic, like cold pennies and ozone. It seeped into your clothes, into your skin. First week on the job, I thought they'd pipe something into the vents to condition us. Later, I realized I was just smelling the circuits and wards and miles of cable humming between our world and whatever burned underneath. On the far right monitor, a graph of soul density fluctuations traced a lazy, jittering line. We monitored that like other facilities monitored seismic activity. Humanity called them ghost readings and made TV shows about it. Erebus called it Metric 7, post-mortal flux. Metric 7 was calm. A few spikes, nothing more than background noise from the city above, someone dying in the hospital, a late-night car crash, a heart attack 2 floors up in finance. It all showed up eventually, like static against the gate. I checked the gate room one more time. The seam, the platform, the outer rail, marked with warning stencils every meter. Do not approach active threshold without level 5 clearance. Someone had added, in permanent marker, or without a death wish. Management had not found it funny. I did. I was halfway through my second lap of the monitors when my console whispered, "Not an alarm. Not yet." Just a soft chime in my headset and a subtle shift in the hum of the room, like the building had taken a breath and was holding it. The status. Panel for subsystem K13 flickered from steady green to amber and back again, fast enough I could have missed it if I'd been blinking. K13, I murmured, more to myself than to anyone listening. What are you doing? K13 was part of the collar array around the gate. A redundant system, according to engineering. If we lose K13, the others pick up the slack. No single point of failure, they'd said during orientation, smiling like that phrase ever applied to anything truly dangerous. The amber flicker came back, 2 seconds this time, then green, then amber again. A heartbeat trying to skip. I opened the diagnostics window with a few keystrokes. Numbers filled the screen. Voltages, resistances, resonance frequencies. K13's output was within tolerance, but its harmonics were off by a fraction of a percent. The system helpfully tagged it as deviation, 0.47%, non-critical, logged for maintenance. I'd seen that tag once before. 3 years ago, on a Tuesday, almost exactly like this one, a minor binding ring had drifted by 0.42%. The system had logged it as non-critical. 10 minutes later, we had our first breach. Not full gate, nothing apocalyptic, just something small and vicious forcing itself through a hairline crack to see what freedom tasted like. We lost 2 techs and 3 security drones before we put it down. Legal called it an unanticipated emergent anomaly. I called it the night I stopped trusting green lights. Control to engineering, I said into the mic. I'm seeing harmonic deviation on K13. Non-critical flag, but it's fluctuating. You reading that? Static hissed for a second. Then a voice came back, thin and irritated. Engineering here. This is Wolf. K13? Papers rustled. Keys clacked. Yeah, we're seeing it. Within spec, control. Probably drift from ambient. We'll schedule a recalibration at 0600. Copy, I said. Logging operator concern. There was a pause. Calder, Wolf said, voice softening just a notch. We had inspection last week. Arrays are clean. If it goes yellow or red, you'll know. Until then, don't spook yourself. Understood. The channel clicked off. I didn't stop watching K13. Minutes passed. 03, 07, 03, sans, 03, 12. On the monitors, the complex stayed quiet. Security drones patrolled their routes in neat white arcs. Jansen did a slow circuit of perimeter 2. his heat signature moving from camera to camera, a tall, familiar smear of red-orange against cool blues. Above us, somewhere outside the concrete and rebar, rain began to fall. I couldn't hear it, but I could see the temperature in the access tunnel drop by a degree. My job description included a lot of watching. What it didn't include, officially, was listening. Not to the building, not to the gate, certainly not to the spaces in between. But you can't sit a few dozen meters from hell every night for 6 years and not start to hear things. Some people hear whispers. I don't. I hear absence. It's in the pauses between the cooling system cycling and the buzz of the lights. In the moment after a drone's treads fade down a hall and before the echo dies. A shape made out of nothing, like a word about to be spoken and swallowed instead. That shape changed when K-13 started to drift. It grew heavier, denser, the kind of silence you get in a hospital just before a monitor flatlines. The amber light flashed again. This time, it didn't go green. A soft, almost apologetic tone sounded through control, not the full-bore klaxon that meant run or pray or both. This one was more polite. Attention, technician. Something is wrong, but we're not panicking yet. On my console, K-13 status square held steady at amber. The label updated itself. Harmonic deviation, 1.93%. Warning, investigate. Engineering, this is control, I said, already pulling up the gate room camera. K-13 just crossed 2%, still climbing. No response. The comm channel light glowed green, indicating an open line, but all I got was dry, empty hiss. Like the mic was live in an abandoned room. Engineering, respond. Nothing. A cold line traced itself down my spine. System logs scrolled in the corner of my primary monitor, updating in real time. 03-1307, K-13, harmonic deviation, 2.11%. 03-1309, auto compensation engaged. 03-1310, compensation failure, source unknown. The gate room feed flickered. Just once, a single frame of static, like an old television losing its antenna signal, then clear again. The seam in the world was still there, still closed, still ringed by steel and sigils, and everything we'd learned to stack between ourselves and what waited below. But the light in the room had changed. Color doesn't exist on our cameras, just shades of gray. But there are grays the human brain reads as warm, and grays it reads as cold. The gate room had always been cold. Harsh industrial lights, hard shadows, clean lines. Now, the gray around the gate deepened, like someone had breathed on the lens. A darker halo, a bruise. 03-13-15, K-13, harmonic deviation. Weight 9%, 03-13-16. Secondary coupling failure detected, 03-13-18. Status, array unstable, lockout initiated. The system finally decided to panic. The polite chime cut off mid-tone, replaced by the full alarm. A rising, falling howl that drilled through the walls, through bone, through thought. Red strobes ignited overhead, turning the control room into a heartbeat of flashing color. All over the complex, doors slammed, locks engaged, protocols unspooled. On my console, a wall of alerts bloomed. Sector B3, quarantine gate room, sealed all non-essential personnel evacuate. And then, below all that, one line in a different color. Not red, not amber. A kind of pale, institutional blue, reserved for messages from higher up the chain. Priority directive. Breach classification under review. Do not declare full breach without executive authorization. Of course, I whispered. Of course you care about the paperwork, my headset crackled. Please let it be engineering, I thought. Or Jansen. Or anyone who wasn't legal. Control, this is command, a new voice said. Calm, cultivated. The kind of voice used to delivering bad news in a way that sounded like an opportunity. Calder, you're on B3 tonight, correct? Affirmative, I said. We've got array instability on K13. It's spreading through the collar. I'm recommending we escalate to full breach protocol and— Recommendation noted, Command said smoothly, which meant ignored. Hold on breach classification. Executive review is in progress. In the meantime, follow interim containment protocol 7. I blinked. 7? 7 was old, outdated. A protocol written back when Erebus still thought of the gate as theoretical. Before we had real incident data. Before we learned that some things coming through didn't care about our categories. With respect, I said, picking my words like I was stepping through a minefield. Protocol 7 assumes a localized incursion of Class 1 or 2. K13 is part of the main collar. If it fails, we're not talking about a stray wraith looking for a host. We're talking pressure on the primary threshold. A pause. In the background of the command channel, I could hear something faint. Overlapping voices, the clatter of a keyboard, the soft thump of a door closing. Someone up there was moving quickly. Calder, Command said, your role is to maintain visual and system oversight, not to interpret executive risk tolerances. Interim Containment Protocol 7, subsection C. Initiate local lockdown. Dispatch on-site assets to assess physical integrity of the collar and avoid any language that might trigger automated external notifications. Understood? There it was. The real priority, buried in lawyer speak. Don't use the word breach unless we tell you to. If we call it something else, we don't have to tell certain agencies or certain shareholders. On the gate room feed, the halo around the seam pulsed. Not in time with the alarms, in time with something older. Understood, I said, because my contract said I had to. Initiating local lockdown and dispatching assets. Good man, Command said. Keep us updated. Command out. The channel died. For a second, it was just me, the alarms, and the gate, pulsing on the screen like a slow, dark heartbeat. Perimeter units, this is control, I said, switching to the security channel. We've got instability in the gate collar. Local lockdown active on B3. Jansen, Morales, respond. Perimeter 1, copy, Morales said immediately. I could hear the echo of the alarm distantly behind her, lower and more muffled. What's your read, Control? Array failure on K13 spreading fast, I said. Command doesn't want the B word yet, so don't say it, but we're on Protocol 7. I need a visual inspection on the collar. Jansen, you closest? Silence. Perimeter 2, respond, I said. Jansen? The comm line hissed softly, open but empty. Maybe he stepped outside, Morales said. Signal drop? In this bunker? I said. He'd have to wrap his head in foil and climb into a fridge to lose signal. I pulled up his locator on my console. Each guard wore a tagged badge that tracked position in real time through the complex. Morales glowed as a white dot in corridor A3, moving toward a stairwell. Jansen's tag showed as a gray X on the edge of Perimeter 2, right where the outer service tunnel curved toward the gate room access. Status: signal lost. Last contact 03 done on 12:48. I swallowed against a dry throat. Control to Perimeter 2. I tried again. Jansen, if you can hear me, key your mic twice. The hiss didn't change. Morales, I said, my voice a notch tighter. You're on stairwell SB. Divert to Perimeter 2 and check on Jansen's last known. Keep your cam live. Copy, she said. No hesitation. That was why I liked working with Morales. On my way, her heat signature moved on the map, a white smear descending. On the adjacent screen, her body cam feed popped up, shaking slightly with her steps, showing concrete walls, red strobes reflecting in sealed emergency glass. I split the main display, gate room on the left, Morales' POV on the right, one eye on the seam, one eye on the human being I'd just ordered toward a problem no one upstairs wanted to name. Talk to me, Morales, I said. How's it look? Like someone set a rave in a coffin, she replied, breath steady. Lockdown shutters are in place, doors sealed. I've got green on all physical locks so far. Copy. You're 50 meters from Jansen's last tag. Slow at 30. Eyes open. Always are. She turned a corner. The corridor narrowed. Low ceiling, pipes running along one side. This was infrastructure space. No windows, no art on the walls, just bare utility. The kind of place no tour ever went. Jansen, she called, voice echoing off concrete. It's Morales. If you're screwing around, now's the time to quit. No answer. 30 meters. 25. 20. The locator pinged softly as she entered the last recorded radius of his tag. The map flipped from static lines to a live overlay, showing her as a circle and Jansen's last position as a fading X ahead. There, she said. I've got his light. The body cam auto-adjusted, iris widening. The red strobes washed over something on the floor up ahead. Bright reflective orange, the striping of a standard Erebus security vest. Morales slowed to a careful walk, gun drawn now, held low but ready. I could see her hands, steady. Control, visual on Jansen's gear, she said. Approaching. My fingers hovered over the manual alarm override. Protocol said wait for confirmation. Instinct said start screaming now. She closed the last 10 meters in 3 silent steps. Jansen's vest lay on the concrete. His badge was still clipped to the shoulder. His flashlight rested beside it, beam pointing uselessly at the wall. His sidearm was holstered. No blood, no sign of struggle. Just an empty uniform, abandoned mid-corridor. Control, Morales said slowly. I've got his vest. Badge still transmitting. No body. On my console, Jansen's locator snapped from the gray X of lost to the green dot of found. The system had no concept of absence. It just knew the tag was there again. Behind her voice, behind the alarms, a new sound filtered through the feed. At first, I thought it was interference. A low, almost subvocal vibration, more felt than heard, resonating through her mic. It had a rhythm to it, not mechanical, not human. Something like a purr scaled up until it became a tremor in the bones. Do you hear that? I asked. Morales turned slowly, camera sweeping the corridor. The sound didn't get louder or softer. It was everywhere at once, vibrating the air, the pipes, the teeth in my head. Yeah, she said quietly. I hear it. On the gate room feed, the seam widened by a fraction of a millimeter. Not enough for any engineer upstairs to admit. Enough for every instinct I had to start screaming. The halo around it darkened, then pulsed in time with that impossible purr. Metric 7, the soul density graph, spiked off the chart. The line didn't climb. It vanished straight up, the display auto-scaling desperately to keep up. The system chimed again, and a new alert unfolded at the bottom of my screen. Unlike the others, this one didn't blink. It simply appeared and stayed, letters stark and steady. Asset designation, Kavor 0, the first and final negotiator. Status, containment, compromised. Location, unknown. The worst demon in our catalog had just vanished from its restraints, and we hadn't even been allowed to call it a breach yet. Morales circled the empty vest like it might get up and walk away. Her body cam tracked every cautious step, the red strobes painting the fabric in stuttering pulses. The collar mic picked up her breathing, still controlled, but higher in the chest now. Control, she said. Confirm. No other tags in this corridor? I checked the map again, even though I already knew the answer. Just 2 glowing markers, Morales in white, Jansen's reacquired badge in green, sitting motionless on the floor like a pinned insect. Confirmed, I said. No other staff. No drones. No one above or below you within. 30 meters. So either he stripped naked and jogged into the walls, she muttered, or your system is blind. Our system is never blind, I said. Just dishonest. The low vibration under her audio thickened, like someone was turning up the background of reality by degrees. It wasn't louder, exactly, just closer. It made my molars ache. Morales, grab the vest and badge, I said. Bag them if you can. We'll need chain of custody. Copy. She holstered her weapon long enough to crouch and scoop up the vest. It didn't flop like normal fabric. For a second, it clung to the floor as though something invisible didn't want to let go. Then it peeled up and hung from her hand, limp and suddenly too ordinary. The purr stopped, not faded, stopped, cut. The silence pouring into my headset made the alarms sound distant and thin, like they were being piped in from another building. Calder, Morales said quietly. I lost the sound. Same here, I said. Return to perimeter 2. I'm logging this as a probable asset interaction. Translation? Something that doesn't pay taxes, just brushed past our reality, I said. And it took Jansen with it. She slung the vest over one shoulder like a dead animal and started back the way she'd come. I watched every corner, every doorway she passed, looking for shifts in shadow, anomalies in thermal. Nothing. The map dutifully traced her path in clean, bright lines. On the other half of my main display, the gate room kept pulsing. The seam was visibly wider now. Not open, not yet, but swollen. The way skin looks around a wound that's about to tear. The halo of wrong gray deepened with each cycle. 03-1502, K13. Harmonic deviation, 9.77%, 03-1504, K09, K10, K11, K12 deviation above 5%, 803-1508, array failure, cascade detected, 03-1510, autosever of K cluster in progress. On the schematics window, the collar around the gate blossomed red segment by segment as the system did the only thing it knew, cut away the infected nodes before the failure could propagate into the outer rings. It was the equivalent of surgically removing organs while your patient was awake and still walking. For a heartbeat, all the K nodes flashed red. Then they went black. Gate collar. Offline. That should never have been possible. The alarm tone shifted mid-wail, jumping from the anxiety of something's breaking to the full shriek of something broke. A second row of strobes ignited, white this time, harsh and flat. B3 primary containment, failure, all units, full breach protocol initiated. Someone upstairs had finally lost the argument about language. Command, this is control, I said. Be advised, the system just escalated to full breach automatically. No answer. Command's channel light glowed green. The line was open. The people on it were ghosts. Calder. Morales' voice snapped me back. I've reached the junction with Stairwell SB. Still no sign of Jansen. Where do you want me? I looked at the gate room feed. The seam glowed now. Not in light our cameras were made to understand, but as a distortion, a white-hot line of overexposed grayscale. The halo around it was thick enough to blur the gantry rail. Interim Containment Protocol 7, Subsection C, dispatch on-site assets to assess physical integrity of the collar. Legal words for send someone to look at the door while the house is on fire. Command wants Protocol 7, I said. That means eyes on the gate. You're the closest. A beat of silence that wasn't static, just Morales thinking. Copy, she said at last. Route? I dragged a path on the schematic, highlighting the access route in blue. From your junction, take Corridor B South, then access Tunnel 3. Service elevator to gate level. You'll hit the outer viewing platform. Do not cross the yellow line without my say-so. Wouldn't dream of it. Her marker on the map turned to follow the new path. I pushed her cam feed to primary and shrank the gate room to the upper corner of the display. The effect was disorienting. Seeing her run toward a room that was quietly, methodically becoming the most dangerous place on Earth. Morales, I said, switch your cam to low light and thermal split when you reach access tunnel 3. Already on it. Her feed flickered, then stabilized. The corridor ahead of her deepened into velvety black, shapes outlined in ghost white and blue. Her own body blazed hot at the center of the frame, a moving furnace of human life. You breathing okay? I asked. You asking for medical or morale? Both. She exhaled once, deliberate. I've been shot at on 3 continents and once by my own cousin. This is creepier, but I'm functional. Good enough. As she ran, I filed 3 separate reports with 3 separate systems: security, engineering, compliance, with 3 different required phrasings that all meant the same thing. We lost the collar. We lost a guard. Something that called itself a negotiator is missing. Only one of those reports would see daylight outside this bunker, and it would be the one with the softest language. I'd learned that in my 2nd year. You can measure a company's integrity by how many synonyms it has for breach. Erebus had a thesaurus. Control, Morales said. I'm entering access tunnel 3. The architecture changed around her. The concrete walls gave way to armored plating, bolted in overlapping sheets. The ceiling dropped lower, threaded with pipes and conduits that pulsed with intermittent light. Every 10 meters, a bulkhead door sat recessed into the wall, ready to slam down if the system decided this tunnel had become a liability. The ambient temperature on my readout fell 3 degrees in under 30 seconds. Not possible for this deep underground, not with the amount of electronics humming. The air on her cam turned into a faintly shimmering haze. Seeing that? I asked. Yeah, she said. Feels like walking into a freezer filled with hair dryers. Cold air, hot noise. Her words made something click at the back of my mind. The last time I'd heard a description like that was in a training video we weren't supposed to have kept. Footage from an overseas joint facility that had tried to build their collar on the cheap. Their incident ended in a crater and a non-disclosure order that could have gagged a god. That facility's lead tech had described the air before the breach as frozen and full of invisible movement, like heat mirage made of knives. I watched the shimmer thicken around Morales' outline. Speed check, I said. You're at 60% of your usual pace. Feels like running in water, she replied. Legs are fine, but each step takes more push. Gravity's constant, I said. If the environment feels thicker, it's not the floor. Comforting, she muttered. Ahead of her, the tunnel ended in a heavy security door painted with diagonal hazard stripes. Above it, in stark block letters, someone had stenciled, Gate Access, authorized personnel only. Below that, in less professional handwriting, a tech had once scrawled, Turn back if it's Wednesday. The joke had been scrubbed with solvent, leaving only a faint shadow. Control, I'm at Gate Access, Morales said. Badge panel is live. You sure about this? No, absolutely not. Proceed, I said. Stay audio hot. If I tell you to fall back, you fall back. Her gloved hand came up, badge held between 2 fingers. She tapped it to the reader. The panel blinked green. Bolts thunked inside the door, heavy metal drawing back. The alarms were quieter here, muffled by layers of wall and protocol, but the red and white strobes still painted the scene in epileptic flashes. The door cycled open. Beyond it lay the gate room. Even through the distortion of the camera and the flicker of the strobes, the space looked wrong. The circular platform of black stone dominated the center, the steel gantries wrapping around it like the skeleton of a dead machine. Banks of equipment lined the perimeter. Monitors, control panels, physical override levers. In every training photo and every previous glimpse I'd had, the gate itself had been a narrow scar cut through space, vertical and mean, stapled shut by an obscene amount of human ingenuity. Now it looked like a wound someone had been worrying at for years and finally, patiently, pulled open. Not wide. Not yet. But the edges of the seam no longer met cleanly. They curled, just a little, as if the fabric between worlds had gone soft. On thermal, the EE gate was a void. No heat, no cold, just a hole in the spectrum. The halo around it seethed in colors our sensors tried and failed to name. "Control," Morales whispered, unprompted. "I have visual on the gate. This is not what the training vid showed." "Stay behind the yellow line," I said. "Confirm position." She panned the camera down to show her boots planted squarely on a thick yellow stripe painted across the metal floor, a good 6 meters from the edge of the platform. "Line held," she said. "What do you need?" I wanted to say. "A different job." "Check the collar hardware," I said instead. I should be seeing total failure, but the structural sensors are still green. Start with the nearest mounting bracket. Look for physical damage, warping, any sign the restraints have been tampered with. She edged sideways along the line until she was adjacent to the nearest coil assembly. The metal was slick with condensation, droplets clinging to the surface like sweat. Her gloved fingers left trails as she touched it. "Cool to the touch," she reported. "No cracks, no visible breaks in the housing. Cables are secure. How about the sigil ring?" The camera dipped to a band of engraved symbols cut into the black stone around the gate. In pre-shift briefings, those symbols had been described as proprietary metaphysical geometry. The veteran techs called them the only reason we still have a floor. On the feed, some of the lines were flickering, the way an old fluorescent tube does right before it dies. Light, not electric exactly, but something like it, ran along the carvings in uneven pulses. "Sections of the ring are cycling," Morales said, "like they're trying to reset and getting stuck." "Copy," I said. "Any foreign objects in the perimeter? Tools, debris, anything that doesn't belong inside the ring?" She swept the camera across the platform. For a moment, everything looked exactly as it should be in a nightmare. Wrong in scale and implication, right in detail. Then the frame caught on something lying just at the edge of the stone. "Zoom," I said. She complied. The image tightened. It was a chair, not one of ours. Not industrial steel or reinforced plastic. This was an ordinary wooden chair, the kind you'd find in a cheap kitchen set or a thrift store. It sat with its back to the gate, angled slightly, as if someone had pulled it up to watch a show and then stepped away. "Morales," I said slowly, "confirm, that furniture is not standard issue." "Unless facilities has been shopping at antique markets, negative," she said. "It wasn't here last week. I did a walkthrough with Jansen on Wednesday. The chair's thermal signature was wrong, not hot, not cold. It had the same spectral absence as the gate itself, like it had spent too long on the wrong side of reality and brought a little of that void back with it. "Do not approach it," I said. "Mark its position mentally. We log it as foreign infiltration." "You think that's our missing asset?" she asked. "K000 is not a chair," I said. "It's what sits in it." As if the room had been waiting for its cue, the low purr returned, vibrating through my headset and up from the floor beneath my boots. It didn't come from the gate this time. It came from everywhere, from the walls and the gantries and the breath in my lungs. On Morales's feed, the camera shook once, a small, involuntary tremor. "Control," she said. "I hear it," I said. "Hold your position." A new line of text appeared at the bottom of my console. Not from security, not from engineering, from a system rarely visible at my level. Executive liaison. Priority directive. Update Asset K000 has entered negotiation phase. Field operative. Calder Rhodes, ID 731B3. Stand by for terms. The words blurred for a second as my eyes fought to make sense of them. Negotiation phase. Field operative. My name. Morales, I said, and my voice sounded distant in my own ears. Stay on the line. I need you to understand something. Say it. There are files in this system you don't see at level 2, I said. K000 wasn't just a thing behind a collar. It was an agreement. A mouth we built the whole business model around. And now? And now, I said, staring at the chair that sat empty and wasn't. Someone upstairs just volunteered me to be the one who talks to it. The directive sat on my screen like a loaded weapon. Priority directive. Update. Asset. K000 has entered negotiation phase. Field operative. Calder Rhodes, ID 731B3. Stand by for terms. Nobody had asked if I wanted the job. Of course they hadn't. Erebus didn't hire people like me for our ability to say no. It hired us for our ability to keep working after no stopped mattering. Control, Morales said. You still with me, Calder? Yeah, I said, throat dry. I'm here. Good, because I'm starting to feel like I walked into the wrong end of a fairy tale. Her camera drifted back to the chair. The thing was still empty, technically. No body, no visible occupant. But the space above the seat looked denser than the air around it, as if something too heavy to see was leaning forward, elbows on invisible knees, interested. Morales, I said, back up 2 steps. She did it without argument. 1, 2. The yellow stripe stayed under her boots. The chair remained where it was, back to the gate, front angled toward her like an audience of 1. Level with me, she said. What is K000? Officially, I said. The first and final negotiator. Unofficially, the reason Erebus exists. You're gonna have to unpack that. I glanced at the gate feed, then at the executive liaison window, waiting for the promised terms that hadn't arrived yet. No script, no bullet points, just my name stapled to the worst asset on file. When they first locked onto the gate, I said, they couldn't close it, not completely. They could slow it, choke it, pin it, but there was always pressure, always something pushing. So they did what people always do when they can't win a war. They made a deal, Morales said. Yeah. With what? I looked at the designation again. K000. 000. The asset that came before numbering systems, protocols, all the rest. With the thing that sits closest to the hinge, I said. Not top of the hierarchy, not bottom. The one they send when they want the humans to sign something. On the chair, the air thickened further. The camera's autofocus hunted, jittering minutely, trying to decide whether there was an object at that depth or just a glitch in the lens. Heaven has emissaries, I said. So does everywhere else. K000 came through when the facility was still scaffolding and optimism. It showed them how to build a collar that might actually hold. In exchange what? In exchange for being recognized as a contractor, I said. With rights, with access, with a say in how many doors we open and close, and when. Morales let out a humorless breath that might have been a laugh in a different world. So, the worst demon in our catalog is technically on payroll. Technically, I said, it's the first consultant this company ever hired. The purr in the bones of the building trembled, almost like amusement. Okay, she said. And why are you the one it wants to talk to? That, I said, is an excellent question. My console chimed, not the frantic tone of a system alarm, but the bland, friendly note of an internal message. A window unfolded on top of everything else, blue-bordered, marked Liaison, Real-Time. Terms of Engagement, K00 Negotiation. Field operative will maintain audio and visual contact with asset. Field operative will not offer, promise, or imply any modification to core compact. Doc Ref, Hellgate 01, without executive written approval. Primary objective, restore containment without escalation to surface-level incident. Secondary objective, limit scope of any new agreements to facility-level impact. Contingency. If asset demands living collateral, prioritize voluntary personnel over unregistered externals. The last line sat there, plain as policy, voluntary personnel, like we were talking about overtime shifts. Morales, I said slowly, if this goes sideways, you leave. Can't leave, she said. Gate's not sealed. That's an order, not a suggestion, I said. If I stop answering, you fall back to SB. Take the elevator to Surface 3, and you do not look back. Understood? No, she said, but copy. The building's hum shifted again. This time, it wasn't like a purr. It was like someone clearing their throat. Put me on speaker, I said. She tapped her comm unit. The mic indicator on my console picked up a second channel, the room's ambient. I wasn't just hearing Morales now. I was hearing the gate room breathe. K000, I said, and the name tasted like chewing on a coin. This is Calder Roads, Level 3 containment. Your file says we have a standing arrangement. For a heartbeat, nothing. Then every light in the gate room dimmed a fraction, not from power loss, but from attention turning. Shadows bent toward the chair. The halo around the gate tightened. It seethed, becoming strangely still, like a crowd holding its breath when a judge walks in. The air above the chair condensed, not into a full form, not yet, but into the outline of an absence. A man-shaped negative space where reality chose to step around rather than through. The camera's colorless world struggled to render it, drawing a silhouette through deformation. Straight spine, long fingers steepled where hands would be, the sharp angle of unseen knees. Mr. Rhodes, a voice said. It did not come through the mic. It arrived in my headset, in the control room speakers, in the metal of the desk under my palms. It arrived in my teeth, smooth, urbane, with the faintest hint of an accent from nowhere human. You're late, I swallowed. There was some confusion over classification, I said. Command didn't want to use the word breach. Ah, the voice said. Semantics, your species' second religion. On Morales's feed, the chair rocked back slightly, as if its invisible occupant had leaned. The gate behind it pulsed once, a slow contraction. You prefer K000? I asked, keeping my tone as flat as I could. Or do you have a name that doesn't double as a filing code? Names have power, they'd said in training. Use designations. Don't invite intimacy. The silence that followed was amused. I have been called many things, it said. Titles, epithets, negotiated handles. Most are unflattering. For efficiency, we may keep your designation for this interaction. Fine, I said. K00, per existing compact. You assist in maintaining structural integrity of the gate and its collars. In return, you receive considerations outlined in Hellgate 01. Tonight, the collars failed. You disappeared from your registered locus. I need to know why. That is not the order in which events occurred, it said gently. Your collars failed because I exercised my freedom of movement as defined in Section 3, Subsection 9 of our agreement. I pulled up the compact ref on a side monitor, eyes flicking over clauses I'd only skimmed during mandatory compliance training. Section 3, Subsection 9. Asset may, at intervals not exceeding 1 century, request temporary relocation within facility boundaries for the purposes of renegotiating scope, provided such relocation does not result in uncontrolled externalization. You were due for a walk, I said. I was due for a conversation, it corrected. Your predecessors preferred to have it in person. I find physical presence clarifying. Morales shifted her weight, subtle, like someone standing near an animal they weren't sure was caged. Calder, she murmured, who exactly are we talking to? The one who negotiated the original collar design, I said, and apparently its own vacation days. Kay Devereaux's laughter was quiet and deeply unpleasant, like velvet over broken glass. Let us not pretend outrage, Mr. Rhodes, it said. Your employers were eager to sign. They wanted the gate tame, the power extractable, the risk commodified. I offered terms. They accepted. You are, as they say, a legacy hire. I pinched the bridge of my nose for a second, feeling a headache blooming behind my eyes. All right, I said. You wanted a renegotiation. I'm here. The gate is unstable. A guard is missing, and the collar is offline. That's not in anyone's interest. On the contrary, it said, it is very much in mine. Instability brings attention. Attention forces engagement. Engagement creates leverage. Morales moved the camera fractionally, giving me a clearer angle on the chair, the gate, the sigil ring. Her hands were steady, but the little tremor in the frame told me everything I needed to know about the muscles behind them. Then let's talk leverage, I said. What do you want? The air around the chair thickened again. For a second, the silhouette sharpened, and I caught impressions like after images. A suit cut in a style a century out of date, a tie that refused to decide on a color, eyes that weren't eyes so much as windows onto a pressure gradient. I want an amendment, it said simply, to the compact, a modest adjustment in responsibilities. Define modest, I said. A reallocation of risk, it said. At present, all breaches, fluctuations, and incidents are treated as facility failure. Your managers and their managers spend much time and energy hiding these from your species' larger structures. This is inefficient. In whose opinion? In mine, it said. For every unit of terror produced by a local event, your systems squander 3 units in obfuscation and bureaucracy. I seek more direct returns. I stared at the waveform of its voice on my audio panel, jagged and smooth at once, refusing to resolve into anything the software could label. You're asking us to stop covering things up, I said slowly, to let the outside world see more. Not more, it said. Better, curated, the right shapes of fear. Contained narratives. You have such charming phrases for it already. Content, engagement, going viral. Morales made a choking sound. You're kidding, she whispered. Horror as a service, I said. You want us to turn breaches into programming. Aren't you already? It asked mildly. Your entertainment sectors feed on sanitized terror, ghost stories, exorcism dramas, monsters declawed into metaphors. All I request is a slight loosening of your filters. Allow 3% of genuine pattern to bleed through your fictions. Let some of the true geometry into their dreams. In exchange what? In exchange, I stabilize your gate, it said. Permanently. No more harmonic deviations. No more surprise fissures in the collar. I will carry the strain personally, as befits a senior negotiator. My fingers tightened on the edge of the console. 3%. It sounded small. It sounded like the kind of number an executive could sell in a slideshow. Negligible increase in public anxiety, they'd say, offset by improved brand engagement. How does this reduce risk? I asked. The more your species sees, the less it believes, it said. Flood them with glimpses. They will call it fiction. But their bones will remember. Their children's bones will remember. That slow, low awareness will serve as a brake on your more ambitious, destructive impulses. Fewer wars, fewer extinctions attempted, Fear is a marvelous teacher when properly applied. You're proposing behavioral conditioning on a planetary scale, I said, with hell as the content provider. Exaggeration, it said. Shared custody at most. Morales swore under her breath. Calder, this is above our pay grade. You're not wrong, I said. The liaison window pinged again. A new line appeared at the bottom, barely delayed. Executive comment. Continue negotiation. Do not reject outright. Explore scope. They were listening. Of course they were. They just weren't talking to me. Keijuju, I said. Set aside the ethics for a second. A popular human pastime, it murmured. Let's talk mechanics. To implement your amendment, we'd need to adjust distribution vectors, media, networks, narrative pipelines. That means involving subsidiaries that don't even know this facility exists. You're asking for a footprint that extends far beyond this bunker. That is correct, it said. Hence my earlier stipulation. Facility-level impact only if you so choose. You may decline to use the full reach of your species' systems. You may limit the bleed to local phenomena, carefully curated, available only to those who seek it. Urban legends, late-night broadcasts, restricted feeds. The principle scales down as easily as it scales up. You're building in plausible deniability, I said. I am offering you an off-ramp from catastrophic ignorance, it replied. Right now, the only thing between your world and a full gate opening is a stack of paperwork and an aging infrastructure budget. I am unimpressed. The worst part was that a tiny, treacherous part of me agreed. I'd seen the maintenance logs, the delayed upgrades, the memos about cost optimization. We were guarding the hinge of creation with systems barely better than duct tape. Morales, I said quietly, cutting to her private channel for a moment. If you had to choose between more nightmares on the surface and this place turning into a crater, which way are you leaning? Nightmares people wake up from, she said immediately. Every time. Yeah, I said. I switched back to room audio. All right, I said, to the thing in the chair. Let's assume, hypothetically, that some version of this is acceptable to the people upstairs. What's the cost you're not mentioning? Its silhouette shifted, as if it had just crossed one ankle over the other. Casual, relaxed, predatory. Every agreement has friction, it said. A sliding of gears, a little blood oiling the teeth. If your species is exposed to true pattern, a percentage will look too closely. A smaller percentage will understand. A precious handful will attempt to imitate. Cultists, I said. Visionaries, it corrected. But yes, you would call them that. They are statistically inevitable. You already have them. My proposal merely guarantees that the operating rules they attempt to learn are the correct ones, not half-remembered superstition. So we trade random idiots opening doors for educated idiots doing it on purpose, I said. Education reduces collateral damage, it said. You keep using words you don't understand, I muttered. The liaison window flashed again. New comment. Executive comment. Request clarification on living collateral clause. Unacceptable to sacrifice staff without oversight. Determine if substitution's possible. There it was. The line we'd probably end up haggling over while the walls shook. Your earlier instructions mentioned living collateral, I said. Define the requirement. Stability has a price, it said. Right now, the strain of holding the gate closed is distributed across your infrastructure. Wards steal your charming collars. With my intervention, that strain localizes. It must vent somewhere. Someone. Someone, I repeated. A custodian, it said. A human anchor entrusted with carrying a fraction of the pressure. Marked, adjusted, kept within facility bounds while in service. In return, they enjoy certain immunities. What kind of immunities? Longevity, it said. Limited protection from incidental harm. An expanded perceptual range. They would be able to see where your reality thins, hear, where it hums. Useful, no? And in exchange, they what? Hurt? Bleed? Go insane? In exchange, it said, they work. They become part of the machinery that keeps your world intact. Their suffering, if such a melodramatic term must be used, is meaningful. Morales spoke up before I could. You're talking about a warded host, she said. A living buffer. Exactly, it said. My compliments on your grasp of basics. Who picks this anchor? I asked. The compact specifies voluntary personnel, it said. Your management may select candidates. I will approve or decline based on compatibility. The liaison window pulsed. No text this time, just the cursor, blinking, blinking, as if someone's fingers were hovering over a keyboard and not quite touching down. Let me guess, I said. You already have someone in mind. Oh, Mr. Rhodes, it said, and now the amusement was almost fond. You sell yourself short. You have been my preferred candidate for some time. Of course, of course. 6 years of night shifts, 6 years of listening to the absences, 6 years of signing every compliance form shoved under my nose. Somewhere in that stack, I'd agreed to be moldable. On what basis? I asked, because if I stopped asking questions, I'd have to start screaming. Proximity, it said. Aptitude, a certain temperament. You do not flinch as much as the others when you look at the gate. You do not worship it. You do not dismiss it. You treat it as a problem to be managed. That is rare. Morales shifted her stance again. Her cam caught the faintest tension in her jaw. Calder, you're not seriously considering this. The liaison cursor finally moved. One line appeared, fast, like whoever typed it had been waiting for the opening. Executive comment. No decision yet. Stall. Priority. Buy time for surface-level evacuation sims. They wanted me to keep the demon talking while someone upstairs figured out how many lives they could afford to lose. I stared at the chair, at the absence in it, at the gate thudding silently behind like a heart trying to remember how to beat. K000, I said. Hypothetically, if I refuse, what happens? Then we revert to current conditions, it said. Your collars continue to decay. Your budgets continue to shrink. Your species continues to treat the hinge of everything as a line item. Eventually, something gives way. Not tonight, perhaps. Not this decade. But soon enough that your grandchildren will not die of boredom. That's the stick, I said. Where's the carrot? I like you, Mr. Rhodes, it said. I appreciate competence. If you accept anchorage, I will ensure that the brunt of further strain bypasses your colleagues. Fewer missing guards. Fewer unexplained ruptures. You would become a focal point, yes, but also a shield. The word shield landed heavier than it should have. I thought of Jansen's empty vest, of Morales standing very still behind a painted yellow line, eyes on a chair that was not empty at all, of the city above us, sleeping badly over a hole they'd paved and forgotten. Calder, Morales said softly, don't let it corner you into binary thinking. There's always a third option. Name one, I said. We shut the gate, she said. For real. No collars, no compacts, no consultants. We find a way to slam it so hard it forgets we're here. K000's chuckle was low and delighted. Now that, it said, is a conversation I have not had in a very long time. Is it possible? I asked. Of course, it said. Everything that opens may close, but not without cost, and not without choosing who pays it. Its silhouette leaned forward. On thermal, the void of it seemed to reach toward Morales's bright heat, not touching, just regarding. Here is my counteroffer, Mr. Rhodes, it said. We add a clause. You accept anchorage for a term, 1 human lifetime. During that span, I hold the gate as steady as your physics will allow. In return, I assist you in designing a true closure protocol, one your executives will find unpalatable. And when my term ends, I asked, then someone else pays, it said, or no one does, and the door swings free. That, too, will be a choice. The liaison window filled with text all at once now, as if 3 different people were typing over each other, and the system had decided to show all of it. Executive comment. Absolutely not. Executive comment. Request more data. Executive comment. This may be only viable long-term strategy. Their panic tasted the same as mine, just more expensive. Timer check, I said, almost to myself. 03:23. Since K13 had first flickered, 10 minutes had passed. In that time, we'd lost a guard, a collar, and the illusion that management was in control. Morales, I said, if the worst case happens, if the gate goes fully open, what's our evac window? She didn't hesitate. 0, sir. Exactly. I took a breath that didn't feel like it belonged entirely to me anymore. The air in control was thick, the hum of the building matching the rhythm of my pulse beat for beat. K000, I said. I'm authorizing a preliminary acceptance of discussion terms only, not anchorage, not amendments, yet. You keep the gate from widening 1 millimeter further while we draft language. In return, I keep command from pulling the plug on this entire facility as a containment measure. You threaten self-immolation, it said, to secure my cooperation. I point out mutual interest, I said. If they decide this place is a write-off, your hinge goes with it. No more compact, no more curated terror, just a sudden, messy severance. The silence that followed was thoughtful. Very well, it said at last. For the duration of this negotiation, I will hold the threshold at its current aperture. No further widening, no exploratory protrusions. Consider it a gesture of good faith. On the gate feed, the seething halo stilled. The curling edges of the seam stopped their slow, almost imperceptible creep. The graphs on my diagnostics flattened a fraction. Not normal, not safe, but no longer accelerating toward disaster. Gesture acknowledged, I said. The liaison pane flashed a new line. Executive comment. Buy as much time as possible. Further instructions incoming. Time for them to argue. For me to decide if being turned into a living pressure valve by a demon consultant was a better fate than being vaporized by a collapsing gate. Mr. Rhodes, K00 said, while your superiors debate, perhaps you and I can speak frankly, off the record, as you say. Nothing is off the record down here, I said. Then let us pretend, it replied. Tell me, before you came to Erebus, what did you think hell was? The question landed with a weight I hadn't expected. Memories surfaced unbidden, childhood sermons, cheap horror movies, late-night internet rabbit holes, fire and pitchforks, endless bureaucracy, personalized torment. Noise, I said finally, punishment without purpose, pain as spectacle. And now? It asked. I looked at the gate, at the humming infrastructure, at the reports stacked in my outbox like gravestones for near misses. Now it looks like an unpaid invoice, I said. A balance someone forgot to settle. The thing in the chair smiled without a face. I felt it in the way the metal under my hands warmed a degree. Good, it said. You may yet prove worth the effort. The building settled around me like a held breath. The alarms were still there, but distant now, as if they'd been pushed into another room. On my monitors, the gate held at that same wrong, swollen aperture. No wider, no narrower. Suspended. You see, Kajor said, stability is not beyond my reach, only beyond your budget. On Morales's feed, the sigil ring still flickered, but its pulses had fallen into a steady, almost metronomic rhythm. The void in the chair sat very still, attention pinned to her, and by extension, to me. In the liaison window, the cursor blinked, then finally spat out another line. Executive comment. Hold off on any acceptance. Request time to model anchorage impact. Under no circumstances agree to permanent terms. Under no circumstances. The kind of phrase that sounded firm right up until circumstances changed. Mr. Rhodes, K00 said, you were about to answer my question. What did you think hell was? What do you think it is now? You gave me half an answer. Half measures are dangerous. You want the rest? I said. I insist. I watched the gate for a heartbeat. The seam trembled once, then steadied again under a pressure I could not see but could feel in the cavities of my skull. Fine, I said. Hell used to be someone else's problem, a story they used to scare kids, a place for bad people to go so the rest of us could feel better about not being them. And now? Now I think hell is whatever bill comes due when you build a company on top of something you don't understand, I said, and then pretend you can expense it away. Morales let out a sharp breath that might have been a laugh if the room had been less wrong. Spoken like a true middle manager of the apocalypse, K000 said. You see the balance sheet, that is why you are useful. The liaison pane pinged again. Another line, this one more frantic. Executive comment. If anchorage becomes inevitable, negotiate reversibility. No irrevocable soul transfers. Require sunset clause. Sunset clause. As if this was just another contract likely to be revisited next quarter. Let's assume, I said, swallowing the sour taste in my mouth, that I'm not rejecting your offer out of hand. Hypothetically, walk me through exactly what anchorage does to me. Ah, it said, the informed consent portion, admirable, painfully late, but admirable. The silhouette in the chair shifted, sharper now, edges biting more cleanly into the grayscale. You become a conduit, it said. Right now, the tension between your world and mine is distributed across stone and steel, sigils and circuits. These things fray, they rust, they are maintained by committees. I've seen the maintenance reports, I said. I know. With anchorage, a significant portion of that tension moves into a living system, it continued. Your nerves, your bones, your perception. You will hurt, Mr. Rhodes. There is no use dressing this in softer words, but the hurt will have cadence. It will not be random. It will not be pointless. Side effects? I asked. Heightened sensitivity to pattern, it said. You will see seams where the others see walls. You will hear when something old presses its face against the glass. Sleep will grow, complicated. You will find it difficult to forget anything you learn down here. That already sounds like my job description, I said. Then perhaps you are closer than you fear, it replied. Morales cut in, voice tight. And timeline? If he says yes, how long before it kills him? Barring external accidents, K00 said, he will live longer than he would have otherwise. Decades, perhaps more. Human tissue reinforced by non-local geometry is remarkably resilient. When the end comes, it will not be from age. But from what? I asked. From choice, it said simply. Anchors do not die of old age, they are spent. The words sat cold and heavy in my gut. The liaison window flickered. 3 messages arrived in quick succession, overlapped by the system into a single stack. Executive comment. This is unacceptable. Executive comment. Risk may be justified if costs localized. Executive comment. Request alternative to staff anchorage. Volunteer populations, convict labor. Of course, if there was a painful job, someone up there would try to outsource it. K00, I said. What if the anchor isn't staff? What if my employers find some other voluntary population? I am not in the business of validating your species' euphemisms, it said. The compact specifies personnel for a reason. I require willing proximity, a worker, not a prisoner, an accomplice, not a victim. So convicts are out, I said. Random abductees are out. You want someone who signs on the line. Precisely, it said. Consent is a powerful binding agent. You have built entire belief systems around the idea. Do not pretend to be surprised that it matters here. My cursor hovered over the manual breach fail option for a second. Total facility sterilization. Last resort. It would vent the gate's contents upward in a blast of reality shear, flatten half the city, and buy the rest of the planet. What? A decade? A century? Before another hinge formed somewhere else, guarded by someone with even fewer scruples than Erebus. Calder, Morales said quietly, private channel again. You don't have to be a hero. Heroes die for symbolism. You're allowed to choose self-preservation. Pretty sure that's not what's on the table, I said. What then? I pick between dying now with everyone or dying later with a job title, I said. Or I kick the can and let some other poor bastard make the same choice in 10 years when the infrastructure finally gives. Then maybe you pick the option that keeps the most people breathing long enough to get better options, she said. On the main audio channel, K0000 hummed, a sound like distant turbines spooling up. I can hear you, you know, it said. Whispers are a luxury of thicker walls. Then you know I'm not answering quickly, I said. That was always the risk, it replied. Humans are very attached to their illusions of autonomy. It slows negotiations. The gate behind it flickered once more, a tiny shudder of the seam. My diagnostics lit with a brief spike that flattened again as K00 leaned back, as if taking some of the weight into itself. You said earlier, I said, that everything which opens can close, including this. Yes, and you will help design a closure protocol if I accept anchorage. Yes. Why? I asked. What do you get out of helping slam a door your side has clearly enjoyed having? Open. The chair stilled. For the first time since it had taken shape, K000 seemed to consider its own words. I am very old, Mr. Rhodes, it said at last. Older than this hinge. Older than your little experiment with private metaphysical security. Doors open and close. Wars begin and end. What persists always is the pattern of exchange. If this gate closes, another will open somewhere, somewhen. New negotiators will rise. They will be less reasonable. You're scared of being replaced, I said. Even hells have politics, it replied. I prefer an arrangement where my continued existence and your continued existence are aligned. Call it enlightened self-interest. Something in my chest unclenched by a hair. Not relief, just the sour comfort of knowing that, for once, everyone at the table was afraid of the same thing. Morales, I said. Status? Still on the line, she said. Heart rate elevated, hands steady, trigger discipline intact. I'll follow your lead, boss. Just don't make me shoot a chair. Appreciated. I muted my mic to the room for a second and looked at the liaison pane. You're seeing this, I said aloud, knowing somewhere a compliance officer and 3 executives were watching everything. You know the options. You had your chance to invest in redundant collars and better protocols, and you didn't. You hired people like me to stand in the gap and hope our signatures outweighed entropy. No text appeared in response, but the cursor blinked faster, an anxious little metronome. I'm not doing this for you, I said, more to myself than to them. Then I unmuted the room. K00, I said, on record, I do not have authority to bind the compact on behalf of Erebus Solutions, Incorporated. Of course not, it said. You are a technician, a functionary, a cog. But I do have authority over my own body, I said. Over where it stands, what it touches, what it carries. You intend to offer yourself regardless of their consent, it said. Interesting. I'm making a narrow deal, I said. Personal. You anchor through me, for a term. You help design a closure protocol. In return, you hold the gate steady, and you keep every other living thing in this facility off your menu. That's it. No content partnerships, no curated terror feeds, no bleed through into the surface unless and until something better than a boardroom signs off. Mr. Rhodes, it said, that is a significant reduction in my proposed upside. Take it or leave it, I said, because here's my counter threat. If you walk away, if you let this gate burrow any further into our infrastructure, I make it my life's work to be in the room with the next negotiator and the next, until someone less reasonable than me decides the best way out is to push a big red button and wipe this whole hinge off the map. The silence that followed wasn't just soundless, it was weightless. Even the hum of the cooling system seemed to hush, like the building itself was waiting to see who blinked. Morales's cam showed her jaw clenched, eyes fixed on the invisible profile in the chair. Sweat tracked down her temple and disappeared under her collar. She did not move. You bargain like an auditor, K0010 said at last. Tedious, thorough, mildly infuriating. I bargain like someone who has to live with the outcome, I said. Another beat. Then, very well, a personal compact then, between you and I. I anchor through you. I hold the gate steady. I assist in designing a true closure. In exchange, you accept the strain and certain modest adjustments. Define modest, I said again. You will not be entirely human when we are done, it said. But you are not particularly satisfied with that condition now, are you? Fair point. Unfair delivery. The liaison pane finally reacted, lines of text spooling up in rapid succession. Executive comment. This is not authorized. Executive comment. Rhodes, stand down. Executive comment. Legal liability is... I closed the window. Not the program, just the display. A small, petty rebellion in a name-tag world. Morales, I said. Here. If this works, things are going to look different on my end, I said. You might not like what you see. Trust the voice, not the optics. If the voice stops sounding like me, you run. If the voice stops cracking on bad jokes, I'm gone, she said. Good metric. I took my hands off the console and set them flat on the metal. The surface was cool, vibrating faintly with the shared hum of the facility and whatever was pressing against it on the other side. All right, I said to the absence in the chair. Show me where to sign. There, it said. You finally asked the right question. I expected ritual, Latin, blood, a complicated sigil carved into my skin. TV had not prepared me for how simple it was. Repeat after me, K00 said. I, Calder Rhodes, of my own informed volition, accept the burden of anchorage for the hinge currently designated Hellgate 01 for a term not to exceed 1 human lifetime. My throat tried to close around the words. I forced them out anyway. Speaking them felt like stepping onto a thin layer of ice and hearing it crack with each syllable. I, Calder Rhodes, of my own informed volition, accept the burden of anchorage for the hinge currently designated Hellgate 01 for a term not to exceed 1 human lifetime. As consideration, it continued, I require the gate's stability, your assistance in designing a true closure protocol, and the safety of all personnel currently within this facility from consumption, possession, or otherwise unconsented use. Repeated that too. Each clause felt like a hook sinking into something soft and unseen. Accepted, it said. Pain hit like a pressure change. Not a stab, not a burn. more like someone had opened a door inside my ribcage and let a storm rush in. My vision pixelated for a second, screens fracturing into shards of black and white and impossible gray. On Morales's cam, the chair leaned forward. The silhouette extended one invisible hand, palm outward, as if pressing gently against glass. My chest answered, an equal and opposite force meeting it halfway. Something old and immense slid into alignment with my nervous system. It did not feel like possession. There was no sense of being pushed aside. It felt more like a second pulse setting up shop alongside the first, a deep, slow beat that turned each of my heartbeats into an echo of something larger. The gate responded. On my monitors, the swollen seam contracted by a fraction. The halo of warped gray thinned. The sigil ring's flicker smoothed into a solid band of light, the pulses syncing up with a rhythm I now felt in my teeth, my spine, the space between thoughts. Metric 7, the soul density graph, spiked once, then settled at a new plateau, high but stable. The cascade of red alerts on my console dimmed one by one, receding into amber, then into the uneasy green of contained for now. "Control?" Morales said. "Talk to me." "I'm here," I said, and heard the difference. My voice came through twice, once at my usual register, once just under it, a low harmonic that did not belong to any human throat. She flinched, just a fraction. "You sound double." "Occupational hazard," I said. "Status on the gate?" She turned her cam. The seam was still there, blacker than black against stone, but its edges no longer curled. The air around it shimmered less viciously. The chair had gone back to silhouette instead of sharpened absence. "Looks calmer," she said, "if that word means anything anymore." K000 spoke, and this time, when it used my headset, it did so as a guest instead of an owner. "Initial anchorage successful," it said. "Congratulations, Mr. Rhodes. You are now the most expensive piece of equipment in this building." "Do I get a raise?" I asked. "Doubtful," it said. Somewhere above us, sirens were still wailing. Somewhere in a boardroom, people were screaming into phones, trying to figure out how to spin. We accidentally turned our night tech into metaphysical infrastructure, into something that wouldn't tank their stock price. Down here, though, things were suddenly, terrifyingly quiet. "Morales," I said. "Fall back to SB, report to Surface Command. Tell them containment is restored at interim level, and that any attempt to remove me from this facility without my consent will void the compact." "You sure you want me to leave you alone with it?" she asked. "You're not leaving me," I said. "You're going topside as witness. Someone has to tell this story who isn't on the payroll of the thing in the chair." She hesitated. Then she nodded once, nose dipping in the frame. "Copy that," she said. "For what it's worth, Calder, you picked the least bad choice." "High praise from someone who's been shot at by family," I said. She snorted. Then she backed out of the gate room, never turning her back on the seam or the chair until the door closed between them. Her heat signature retreated on my map, moving toward the elevators and the smaller, more comprehensible dangers of the surface. The moment she was gone, the room felt larger, colder, more honest. "Well," K0 said, "now that the audience has thinned, we may begin the real work." "Closure protocol," I said. "Yes," it said. "You will need thicker walls, better sigils, a willingness to hurt your own infrastructure in ways your executives will find distasteful. They will call it sabotage. You will call it preventative maintenance." "And you?" I asked. "What do you call it?" "Succession planning," it said. The gate pulsed once more in time with my heart. For the first time since hiring on, the throb of it didn't feel entirely alien. It felt horribly like part of my own circulatory system. "You will not sleep much," K. said conversationally. The pressure will leak into your dreams. You will see doors in places that do not have doors. Some of them will be real. You must resist the urge to open them just to prove that you can. Any upside you haven't mentioned yet? I asked. You will know, it said. When the next hinge begins to form on your world, you will feel it like a pulled muscle halfway across a continent. You will be able to whisper warnings into the ears of those who think they run things. Some will ignore you. A few will listen. That is more than most humans get. Sounds lonely, I said. All stewardship is, it replied. I leaned back in my chair and stared at the wall of monitors. The facility map glowed in patient lines. The gate room feed held steady. The alarms, one by one, downgraded to notifications, then to quiet log entries waiting to be filed. On the far right, Metric 7 traced its new, higher plateau. Every so often, a small spike flickered along it, like a heartbeat in a hospital corridor. I could feel each one in my bones. Upstairs, the world kept spinning. People kept sleeping badly, or not at all. Horror channels queued their next uploads. Someone clicked on a video about true stories from security guards and turned their volume down at the first sign of something that felt too real. Down here, I went back to work. Log entries waited to be written. Incident reports needed my initial. New maintenance tickets had to be filed for the collar hardware, even if the real collar now ran through my nervous system. Someone would want graphs, charts, projections. They always did. Mr. Rhodes, K. said, almost idly, out of professional curiosity. If you survive long enough to watch this hinge close, what will you do with your retirement? The question took me by surprise. I pictured sunlight that didn't taste like recycled air. Rain I could actually hear. A job where collapse of reality wasn't in the training manual. Maybe I'll open a bar, I said. Somewhere far from here. Trade drinks for stories. Only let in the ones who know enough to be afraid. An elegant symmetry, it said. I approve. The gate hummed. My bones answered. The building for now stayed standing. I keyed in a new line at the bottom of the main incident log, fingers steady despite the weight settling into them. B3 primary containment failure. Status, stabilized via anchorage. Field notes. I work for a company that guards the gates of hell. Tonight, the worst demon escaped. Tomorrow, it goes back to work with me.